The restructure of our major newspaper publishers continues with more editorial changes. David Johnston becoming the editor of the Herald Sun after Simon Pritstall resigned. He spoke to Nigel Freitas.
Oh, look, I think it's an enormous privilege to be appointed editor of the Herald Sun. It's Australia's biggest selling daily newspaper, certainly in Victoria, and it's a paper I've worked at for more than 20 years. So, there's a sense of pride there, but there's also an enormous challenge ahead, and I've already started turning my mind to how we might meet those challenges.
Okay. Is there any truth at all to the rumour that there's been a power struggle between the daily paper and the Sunday paper as you move towards that integrated newsroom?
I wouldn't agree with that proposition at all. I was the editor of the Sunday Herald Sun for close to 4 years. Simon, prior to me, had been the editor of the Sunday Herald Sun for 3 or 4 years. I wouldn't say that. You know, the Sunday and the Daily have always competed to a degree, but still remained faithful to the overall good of the Herald and Weekly Times.
Now, we're seeing a lot of experienced news editors lose their jobs today. What kind of skills do you think a news editor needs now that they might not have needed previously?
Look, I think as new technologies come in, you know, we've got a mobile phone site, we've got an iPad app, we've got a website. Things are changing very quickly, and I'm sure there will be things invented during my time as editor that we haven't even thought of yet. Ultimately, though, the game hasn't changed when it comes to editing. It's still about getting great yarns, getting great photos or video, and making the right judgments about placement, tone, and timing. So in some ways, despite the dramatic advances in technology, the core craft, in fact, has never been truer. You know, it's still the same.
Do you still consider yourself to be a print journalist?
No, I don't. You know, I was a reporter for many years on the Herald Sun. I'm now accountable for all our digital platforms as well. So, you know, we're in the process of restructuring the business. You know, we are traditionally a print company that's beginning to change and morph into a multimedia company. We're several years down that route and we've got a long way to go, but absolutely I'm accountable for the digital products as the newspaper, as I should be.
Now, talking about that restructure, you've been appointed as the editor of the country's largest daily selling newspaper, but in a time of great change. Given that, do you feel the pressure to raise those circulation numbers, or given what's happening in the current landscape, do you think a drop in circulation is somewhat inevitable?
Look, I won't say it's inevitable. Look, it's no secret that newspapers around the world are experiencing circulation pressures as society changes. But mark my words, editors are still held to account for their circ numbers, but also will be judged by the digital metrics as well.
How will the new editorial system work in practice? That is, how will you actually decide when to break news, which platform to break it on, and if you're continually breaking it online, doesn't that then cannibalise sales of your newspaper?
Look, I don't necessarily think so. You know, there are some stories that are very obvious. We've got a very good team out there who make a lot of calls without reference to me. The old days of the editor being the sole determinant of what's broken and where are over, because otherwise you just create a logjam. You know, as a business, we've developed a good team of news desk chiefs. They will make many calls. You know, we break lots of stories live. You know, our deadline is now, you know, we used to just work to the 8:30 p.m. deadline in the evening. Now, obviously, an enormous amount of energy is still focused on putting out the paper, as it should be, and will continue to be. But I believe we can pump out enough great journalism to satisfy both the digital demands, which are immense, plus the newspaper demand for the next day.
Are you worried about the take-up of your digital offering when the ABC is offering pretty much the same news for free, and so is Google? Many consumers still don't want to pay for news. Why are they going to pay for the Herald Sun when they can get the same product free on the ABC? Yeah,
that's a good question. The ABC is a competitor, as is Twitter, Facebook, social media. So it's a very complex, competitive environment out there. Consumers have been used to getting news for free on the web for a long time, but along the way, they've also been paying for it in print through the newspapers. Our view is that that they should be able to pay for quality content online. As to whether they will, well, ultimately time will tell whether that'll be the case. But I'm hopeful that our offering will be compelling enough for them to see that it is going to be good value for money. But I wouldn't underestimate the challenge. All media companies in the world are beginning to look at charging for online. It's not just Rupert Murdoch's, it's Fairfax, etc. So I believe that we're beginning the process. Now, this might take a number of years to change those behaviours, but you've got to start somewhere.
Much of the readership from the Herald Sun comes from your AFL coverage, but now the AFL itself has set up a media outlet and that's siphoning away viewers from the Herald Sun. How are you going to deal with that challenge?
Well, look, you're right. AFL is central to what the Herald Sun offers in print and online. Online, we've got one of the world's biggest fantasy football games in Supercoach. Plus, we break a hell of a lot of stories via the web and our other products. So we just have to be the best. You know, sure, the AFL are establishing their own newsroom, but we're not that worried about them. We're just focusing on what we do. And we believe that if we consistently break the best and the biggest football stories, make Supercoach the best game, with Live Match HQ and all the other additional elements that we've introduced this year, then we will prevail.
Speaking of competitors, next year The Age is also moving to a tabloid or compact format. Are you worried that that is going to eat into your sales at all?
Look, it'll be another challenge for sure. You know, the tabloid, and we'll proudly use that word. I notice Fairfax has been trying to call themselves a compact, but they're going to tabloid whether they like it or not. You know, that is the preferred size for readers, from a reader's point of view. Look, we've met other challenges. We're just going to have to keep improving the paper and, you know, bring it on.
Once you've moved on from this role, how would you like your tenure here to be remembered?
Well, that'll be for others to judge, but I'd like to look back and think, well, we had a crack at some quality journalism consistently, broke some big stories, covered the major events that will inevitably unfold well, and with compassion.
Just time for a quick look at the ratings. Free-to-air TV first for week 27. James, what did you see here?
Yep, the block, yeah, fantastic stuff. Dominated State of Origin again, yeah, massive week for 9. They're sort of juggling their way through at the moment. They won till the Olympics. They've been running The Voice US this week. Hasn't been doing fantastically for them, would be a bit of an understatement. But they sort of weren't expecting to do great business, so I think it might stay there.
And let's have a quick look at the subscription TV ratings. Top 5 sport there, Fox Footy at number 1 watched. And turning to the non-sport, top 5 Modern Family there for Fox 8. Some news too of some new shows.
History Channel, yeah, recorded something called The People Speak, be shown a little bit later this year. Bunch of actors, Claudia Carvan, Jack Thompson, some great musical performances, Tex Perkins, people like that. We'll see that in November. Some great shows coming up on History Channel too.
James Manning, great to see you as always. Thanks,
Thanks, Bridie.
That's all we've got time for. Thanks for your company.